Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank my good friend, Dr. Anatoly Antonov, whom I've known for a number of years, for chairing this session. Thank Minister Shoigu and the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation for their kind invitation for Singapore to be part of this important 5th Moscow Conference on International Security. It's an honor for me to speak alongside with my defense ministers from ASEAN and India. The topic is military-to-military cooperation. The optimists will say that after 2 world wars, the human race would have learned from its past mistakes. The optimists would also add that the 21st century presents an opportunity to break from our periled past, where military-to-military engagements of different countries can now deepen to truly seek common ground to strengthen bilateral and multilateral ties. The pessimist's rejoinder is that militaries will always be an instrument of state, that there are no permanent friends, only interests, and where interests are not aligned, conflicts are inevitable. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Whether one is an optimist or pessimist, I suggest that one reserves judgment and not only support, but as leaders push military-to-military engagement between our countries. It is in our collective and individual interest to do so, because at very least, interactions between our militaries reduce the risk of miscalculations and mistakes. In this age of globalization, with common markets in finance and trade, transboundary flows of goods, services, capital, and labor are occurring on a daily basis at levels unprecedented, never seen historically. Countries are too interconnected, and the price of conflict, wherever they occur, too high for everyone, potentially. Very few here need further convincing of this reality. Whether it was the global financial crisis, the wave of migrants into Europe arising from the violence in Iraq and Syria that we see today, or the disruptive effects of lower energy prices due to shale gas, the consequential impact has been global. Indeed, the number of regional trade agreements worldwide has risen from around 70 in 1990 to more than 270 last year, and the Asia-Pacific region has been a prime mover and major beneficiary. Trade with Asia and within Asia has risen and kept economies buoyant in the last decade compared to Europe or the Americas. Global trade patterns have changed with increased flows to Asia. China is now the largest trading partner of ASEAN, Japan, Australia, Korea, and a number of other countries, and is the second largest trading partner of many others. With this economic prosperity, countries in the Asia-Pacific are also increasing their military spending. Many countries are playing catch-up, and they are trying to modernize their militaries. In fact, in absolute terms, Asia's military spending has outstripped that of Europe since 2012, and is projected to surpass that of the US within the next decade. It is in this context of increasing interdependence that the calls for greater cooperation and collaboration between militaries become increasingly important. For Northeast Asia, between China, Japan, and Korea, the need for dialogue and common understanding is urgent, given the tensions in the East China Sea and the Korean Peninsula. The common security challenge from non-state actors such as jihadi extremist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS is another reason to increase cooperation to face down this threat. Other transnational challenges related to cybersecurity, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, international piracy and human smuggling, biologic pandemics are too large for any one country to deal with, as my esteemed colleagues before me have emphasized, and will require the combined efforts of countries and appropriate use of their militaries. To tackle these challenges, we must step up dialogue and practical cooperation. Platforms such as the East Asia Summit, the Asian Regional Forum, and the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus allow countries from the Asia-Pacific and beyond to come together for dialogue and cooperation. In fact, the ADMM Plus, which is only 6 years old, has made good progress in strengthening practical cooperation between our militaries. This year, 4 ADMM Plus exercises will be conducted. Next month, Singapore, Brunei, Australia, and New Zealand will co-host a large-scale exercise focusing on maritime security and counter-terrorism. In fact, Russia is one of the biggest contributors to the exercise and will send 1 destroyer, 2 helicopters, 2 auxiliary ships, 2 special forces team, and headquarters staff. Through these exercises, our different armed forces learn more about each other, build trust, and build new capabilities that we need to tackle the threats to our common prosperity. We must also step up information sharing. This is why Singapore established a Maritime Information Fusion Center in 2009 to provide a platform for maritime-related information sharing and coordination. Platforms such as these strengthen our regional security architecture while facilitating operational cooperation against common challenges. In addition to platforms for dialogue, practical cooperation, and information sharing, we must also build effective mechanisms that promote peaceful means of resolving disputes and de-escalating tensions when they arise. Brunei's direct communication link among the ADMM countries is one such initiative, and when implemented, will provide a quick and reliable means of communication when we encounter any crisis. During the 3rd ADMM Plus in Kuala Lumpur last year, Singapore suggested expanding the Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea, or CUES, to include white shipping, as encounters could also take place between them and military vessels. It will also be useful to extend it to include the Coast Guard. Regional navies can also work towards creating a similar protocol to guide submariners so as to prevent accidents during an unlikely encounter. We can also look at establishing another protocol to regulate air encounters between military aircraft, similar to the protocols established between China and the US last year. Ladies and gentlemen, in this increasingly connected world, cooperation and collaboration remain key assets to deal with complex transnational challenges. For defense and security agencies, we must keep working to build trust and cooperation so that we can more effectively tackle challenges together. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.